Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. The good people at Most Valuable Promotions asked a question to the boxing community at large. The women that have defined boxing, who would you add to the Mount Rushmore of women's boxing if you could? Because so much of what happens in boxing happens in cycles, happens in eras. In the previous one, you may have had Layla Ali up there, Christy Martin, Jane Couch. Maybe you would have also had Ann Wolfe up there, or maybe not Ann, maybe Lucia Riker, maybe Holly Holm. I guess it all depends on who you ask about the previous era. In the postmodern one, the one that we're in now and the one that is coming to a close, I think most people would agree Katie Taylor's got to be there, Amanda Serrano's got to be there, Clarissa Shields, and of course, Cecilia Brækhus, who is not as talked about as the aforementioned three. Her career has definitely winded down, but she reigned as a champion for a very, and I mean a very, very long time. 24 successful title defenses, just one short of matching and surpassing Joe Louis's record, and about 8 or 9 of those title defenses were of the undisputed crown. Now, she would be the fourth. She would be the fourth on that Mount Rushmore for me of this postmodern era that is now coming to a close because Katie Taylor's career is winding down. So is Amanda's. Cecilia's definitely. Clarissa has a few more good years left. Honorable mention to fighters like Senicia Estrada, who saw herself become an undisputed champion in her time, and so did Germany's own Tina Ruprecht, Savannah Marshall, Franchon Cruz. Honorable mention to them, but I think the top 4 would have to be Katie, Amanda, Clarissa, and Cecilia. What about the next generation? What leaders of the new school and what fighters in this next wave of Valkyries, women boxers, have all the makings of someone that could grace a proverbial Mount Rushmore of women's boxing in the future? Really, it's a story only time can tell, but almost immediately, Gabby Fundora comes to mind because she's only 22 years old and she's already an undisputed champion that is really just getting started. Might do the exact same thing at Superfly, the exact same thing at Bantam, maybe as high as Super Bantam. She has serious potential. That if what we're talking about is a proverbial Mount Rushmore of the next generation's fighters, Gabby might be up there, Ellie Scottney might be up there.
Catford.
I don't want to speak too soon because it's still too soon to tell. Ellie has to unify her own division before this argument has credibility. She has to beat Yami Mercado, then she has to beat Nazarena Romero. Remember that we're not just talking about good fighters, not just good and not just great, but the great among the greats, which is a little more than a top 10 ranked standing, a bit more than just the pound-for-pound list. All of those are subject to change. This is a bit more finite in the sense that at the end of a particular era, there may be 4 or more fighters that stand out. Gabby Fundora already does. Ellie Scottney may join her, depending on how the rest of her career goes. 2 other slots are open to interpretation. What young female fighters are going to make a splash big enough to land a spot on something like this?
It's going to take a lot.
Perhaps Alicia Baumgartner, who's already an undisputed champion. She already did that. And at some point, she's going to move up. At some point, she may restart that process and fight an even more big fights. So maybe Alicia.
Maybe her adversary, Michaela.
But aren't you talking about the next generation of fighters? Alicia and Michaela debuted as professionals around the same time as Katie and Clarissa.
They did, but they have less miles on the odometer and more good years left.
More than Katie, who's coming up on 40, more than Amanda, who's right behind her, and more than Cecilia.
Maybe it'll be them.
As stated, it's a story that only time can tell, and there are already some good shouts right now, but it's something we'll have to wait and see.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, boxing insider Rick Glacier took to his social media to dispel some rumors, saying, "Let's clarify and denounce some big boxing rumors with facts, and the facts are as follows. Edgar Berlanga did leave Eddie Hearn, but he did not sign with the PBC."
Who said he did?
Berlanga is a promotional free agent and will remain so for now. Keith Connolly remains the manager. Shakur Stevenson has left Eddie Hearn. Shakur is now with Lou DiBella on what I'm told is a fight-by-fight deal.
What? When did that happen?
Eddie Hearn has fallen out of favor with Turkey El Sheikh, rightfully so.
So let's start with the Berlanga stuff, the Berlanga rumor. Where did the rumor come from that Edgar had left Matchroom to go to the PBC? Likely from someone who's a big fan of the PBC, if I had to guess, because the Haymanites...
They have no problem spreading misinformation. They have no issue making up their own news and spreading it around like it's the gospel, until such a time as it is debunked. I remember one guy...
People over there at Brunch Boxing claimed that Virgil Ortiz was not paid for his fight in Saudi up until Virgil Ortiz himself came along and dispelled that rumor.
These guys ain't got no problem lying. So when I see that there's a rumor going around that Edgar was going to go to the PBC...
It's either a rumor somebody at the PBC started or somebody who's just a big fan of the PBC. They know their stable is thinning out.
They are down to just 2 flagship fighters.
The rest of those guys they've got couldn't fill out a high school auditorium, and for them, signing Edgar Berlanga would be a moral victory that, look, he left Matchroom, he left Eddie, now he's at the PBC.
As ridiculous as Edgar Berlanga is, they would consider that a win.
But the story is, he's still a free agent, tantamount to an independent contractor loaning out his services to Turkey El Sheikh for yet another big show in the tri-state area. As we all know, Turkey's paying top dollar, and Turkey's willing to work with anyone, everyone. So bottom line, he did not sign to the PBC. That was all bullshit, at least according to Rick. The second part I struggle with, that Shakur Stevenson has left Eddie Hearn and has left Matchroom, and he hired Lou DiBella?
For what?
Shakur Stevenson is managed by Jay Prince. That situation hasn't changed. Of what use would a partnership be with Lou DiBella? That's just another hand in the cookie jar. If what you're about to do is box on one of Turkey's shows, what do you need from Lou DiBella?
You're about to box on another one of Turkey's shows, and he's the one paying you.
Not sure how much I believe this from Rick Glacier, that Shakur Stevenson left Matchroom just 1 fight into what was supposed to be a 2-fight deal, when technically he still hasn't fought under the Matchroom banner. His last fight, the Josh Padley fight, was not a Matchroom show. That was a Turkey El Sheikh show.
So if he entered into a 2-fight deal to box under the Matchroom banner, I'm not sure that fight would have completed even one of the fights of the deal.
Well, is it possible they terminated the deal early? And if they did, why would they have done that?
Shakur's financial demands.
Not because he was demanding anything from Matchroom. He wasn't. Every single rumor out there about Shakur's next fight ties to a Turkey El Sheikh show, not a Matchroom show, not Eddie Hearn. So if they cut him loose early without him having completed the deal, it's because they know what the future holds for him. Moreover, they know he has expensive tastes, and they're not going to waste their money. What would be the point? Turkey wants to use him, Turkey wants to pay him, he wants to work with Turkey, so let him.
Rick also claims that Eddie Hearn has fallen out of favor with Turkey El Sheikh, and rightfully so.
He didn't elaborate. He didn't make any suggestions or lend any insights as to why that would have been. To my knowledge, based on what's out there, there's no reason to believe that Eddie is now on bad terms with Turkey, and it wouldn't surprise me if Rick Glacier, who does a lot of work with Golden Boy, is just being malicious. suspicious.
That explains it.
We all know that Oscar De La Hoya of Golden Boy Promotions has always had a bone to pick with Eddie Hearn, and so Rick Glacier might be helping him pick that bone. Whoever Golden Boy has problems with, Rick has problems with.
Rick is always trashing Eddie Hearn, always trying to, I should say, just like Oscar.
Though with Oscar, it's a little bit more obvious why. With Rick, it's not as obvious. What's your problem? What's your issue with Eddie Hearn? What did he do to you? You say he fell out of favor with Turkey LL Sheik. For what reason is that?
Aren't they in bed together for this upcoming Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank fight?
This is one of those things you can say with impunity, because if it turns out to not be true, you can always call it a rumor.
You're the one that spread it, though.
Don't shoot the messenger and all that jazz. Here and now, I don't know for what reason Eddie Hearn would have fallen out of favor with Turkey LL Sheik, but I don't want to be presumptuous either. So we'll see if this rumor holds any water. And if it doesn't, don't forget who spread it.
Don't forget where it came from.
Canelo anymore. Where'd that piece come from?
Yeah, look, I was thinking about it, like, what for? Like, for what? I think, look, we're you know, he's a fighter that fights for the Mexicans and, you know, for Latinos, and it's like, why fight? Why? It's not worth it. And plus, I'm much older than him. You know, he's the kid, so I'm gonna step up as a man and just say, you know what, let's watch the beef here. It's like, it's not worth it for me. It's not like if I'm losing sleep over it, but it's not worth it for me, and it's not worth it for anybody. So, you know, hey, Canelo, let's make peace, baby. Let's make peace. Or let's smoke the peace pipe.
Veteran boxing scribe Sean Zattel caught up with Oscar last night at the Gabby Fundora versus Marilyn Badillo fight, and you saw what he said. He wants to now make peace with Canelo after spending a lot of time taking shots at him.
The bad blood may have been mutual, but not the effort. Oscar spent a lot more time on Canelo than Canelo spent on him. Canelo's got better things to do and better things to think about than bickering with Oscar, who was still mad and still feeling jilted that Canelo left him. Now he wants to pretend that he's taking the high road.
I don't know when exactly things went bad between Canelo and Oscar. I just know when they came to a head, circa 2020.
I remember about 5 years ago, you started hearing talk about DAZN wanting premium opponents for Canelo. He was arguably the most expensive fighter on the platform at that time, and it would seem that DAZN wanted some say-so in who he fights and what they were paying for.
Now, where they would have got the impression that they had any say-so over Canelo's opponents would have been from Oscar, not Canelo himself, because as far as Canelo knew, based on his Golden Boy Promotions deal, he had the final say over who he fights.
Where who they wanted him to fight guys like Khabib, Jorge Masvidal, or Conor McGregor. Big crossover fights that would mirror the success of the Maymack fight with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor.
Now, in September of that same year, Canelo Alvarez sues Golden Boy and sues DAZN due to them offering him only a fraction of the money he normally makes for what was supposed to be his next fight, citing that his next opponent was not a quote-unquote premium opponent, whereas as far as Canelo knew, he was supposed to make a set amount of money every single fight, and he had final say over who he fights.
So he files suit on the premise that there's a contract breach, and he was also asking for some astronomical dollar amount that I didn't expect him to get, and he didn't, but he did get free agency.
He did achieve that, and the question is, why?
Surely the lawsuit he filed must have held some water, because Golden Boy Promotions cut him loose as their most valuable acquisition, the most valuable fighter in their roster. They terminated the deal, and they let him go.
Terminated the deal early because they're the ones that violated it. Outwardly, the way it looks, Canelo's deal with Golden Boy came before their deal with DAZN. So if Golden Boy goes into a deal with DAZN that violates their deal with Canelo, you created the breach.
You're liable.
And he can sue you. At which point, the cheapest alternative is to just cut him loose, let him go, and go your separate ways, which is how all of this ended, though not without Oscar De La Hoya periodically taking shots at Canelo Alvarez every year that followed his departure from Golden Boy.
Became obsessed with the man.
In many ways, he still is. He's just calling for a truce now. He wants to make peace.
Technically, Canelo hasn't been at war. You've been at war, all by yourself, focusing on him and whatever he's doing and whoever he's affiliated with, behaving like a jilted ex the entire time. Canelo Alvarez profits nothing from allowing Oscar back into his circle. The only one who would stand to benefit in any way from this is Oscar, which is likely why he's the one proposing it. And this rift is not an isolated incident. Things ain't all cookie crunchy with Ryan either. How many public blowouts have they had to the point where Ryan Garcia tried to invalidate his existing Golden Boy Promotions deal so that he could achieve free agency? Just like Canelo, it didn't work for him.
But you get the gist of it, that if he could leave, he would leave. Jaime Munguia already did. He went over to Top Rank.
For a little while there, Oscar De La Hoya thought that was still his fighter.
So the crux of it is, you can respect Oscar De La Hoya's boxing career when he was still a boxer, but as a promoter,
He's a scumbag. He's a slimeball. Maybe he has to be to find any success as a promoter. It's a cutthroat business, but that's still what he
a
is.
slimeball, he resembles more of a weasel than a warrior now.
Oh, now you want to make peace with Canelo Alvarez because you've had a few? How long is it going to be before you upload another one of your Clapback Thursday segments taking shots at Canelo? That why should Canelo, who clearly doesn't need you anymore, who has clearly outgrown Golden Boy Promotions, why should he make peace with you? You're no threat.
This isn't exactly a war in terms of swords and sandals, tanks and artillery. It really is mostly just Oscar making catty comments about Canelo, criticizing him every chance he gets, bringing him up every chance he gets. But I don't think Canelo's losing any sleep over that. It's business as usual for him. He's about to make his Saudi Arabian debut opposite the ring William Skull to become a two-time undisputed champion and make a lot of money while he does it. So what's he gonna worry about Oscar for?
What is the first fight of a 4-fight deal? He beats William, then he moves into a Terrence Crawford fight. He beats Terrence, he moves on from that, fights somebody else, makes even more money. But what the hell is he gonna be worrying about Oscar for at this late stage in his career?
Oscar De La Hoya's inane babble. For 5 years you've been taking shots at this guy. Now you want to call a truce? He doesn't need one. He doesn't need you.
You need him.
Smoke a peace pipe. You need to lay off the pipe, if anything. Lay off the sauce, Oscar.
Sounds stupid.
So Canelo Alvarez's career is winding down. He only has a few more fights left to where he doesn't actually need a truce with Oscar or Golden Boy. And as far as Golden Boy, they haven't secured their own future. The next heir apparent to the throne Canelo Alvarez may leave behind, I would say it's Ryan, but they don't actually have the best relationship with Ryan. And even if they did, Ryan, as popular as he is, he's not as popular as Canelo, not as stable, not as serious.
They got their own problems.
Golden Boy does, to where having spent as much time as he's already spent on Canelo is counterintuitive. He's gone. He's not coming back. You're still talking about it.
It's been over 5 years. 5 going on 6.
Call a truce with Canelo. Look in the mirror, buddy. The only one who's kept this feud alive is you.